Good afternoon. Welcome to Armstrong Fieldhouse and the Pony Up Pregame Show presented by Origin Bank. I am Rich Phillips, and we are here at the Mustangs indoor practice facility getting ready for the home opener tonight. The SMU Mustangs taking on the Houston Christian Huskies. That'll be a 7 o'clock kick right down the street over at Ford Stadium. We'll have it on the radio side as well on 96.7 and 1310. The ticket beginning at 6:30 with the pregame show. 7 o'clock, of course, is the kickoff at Ford Stadium tonight. With me, as always, here on the Pony Up Pregame Show, we got Scott Garner. You know, Scott, it feels a lot more to me like the season's actually starting tonight because we've had a bunch of games today, unlike last Saturday. We had one game last Saturday. It's hot.
Yes.
And we're here. It feels way more like the season's actually starting tonight. And also last week was almost kind of a surreal game because things didn't go quite the way we planned in a 29-24 win over Nevada.
But, you know, it's not how you start. It's how you finish. And we finished with a few more points than the opponent, so all things are well. And, hey, the Mustangs aren't the only team that has struggled a little bit in week 0 or week 1.
Yeah, the first-place team, or the expected first-place team in the league, is 17th in the league. Florida State with a loss to Georgia Tech last week. I saw Rhett Lashley as we were getting on the plane after the game the other night, and he kind of gave me this wide-eyed look, and I said, it's not how. It's only how many.
That's right.
And last Saturday night, the Mustangs won as many games as they could win, and they lost as few games as they could win. Let's recap that a little bit before we get ready for HCU here tonight. 29-24 at Nevada. You kind of alluded to it, Scott. It was a tale of just two halves in that game.
Well, as you know, he got off to a slow start, and things are just like that sometimes. It takes a while, particularly in this day and age of the NIL and the transfer portal where you've got so many new faces. And as we talked about last week, the Mustangs had 8 new defensive linemen come in from Power 4 schools, 4 from the offensive standpoint on the O-line from Power 4 schools, so it just takes a little while. Nevada was better than I think a lot of people thought they were going to be, particularly from a defensive standpoint. Jeff Choate just did a phenomenal job in fall camp getting them ready to go. Their defensive ends particularly gave our offensive tackles some problems. They bull rushed us. Both tackles got bull rushed and at times knocked down as a result of that. And on one incompletion to Jordan Hudson in that first half, some people thought that Hudson should have caught a ball, but the problem was that right tackle got knocked right into stone, and he was not able to follow through and get completely on top of the ball. So you just had some problems, and these are not uncommon with first games, particularly in the transfer portal era.
They played about as poorly as they could in that first half,
and
they were down only 17-10 at halftime. The second half, it was almost complete domination, and if not for that Brandon Crossley penalty on the punt, which incidentally, all video suggests there was no spitting incident with Brandon Crossley. The league supports him. The coaching staff supports that it didn't happen. That kept the drive alive that took 8:50 off the clock, and they scored their only points Nevada did of the second half. If you didn't have that happen, you absolutely dominated the entire second half Saturday.
Rich, I really thought that was the drive where Nevada sort of came to the realization, hey, not only can we hang with this team, we've got a chance to beat this team. And before you can win, you've got to believe that you can win. And I really felt like that drive alone led that team to believe that they could win. And when they had the ball 1st and 10 on SMU's 29-yard line with about 10 minutes to go, I don't think I was the only one nervous.
No, not at all. SMU wound up scoring 16 fourth-quarter points, and R.J. Maryland just went off in the second half. All 8 of his catches, 162 yards. The game-winning touchdown all came for him in the second half. Preston Stone threw for 254 on the night. 213 yards came after halftime. He really caught fire in the second half.
What's interesting about Stone is that, yes, he got off to a slow start. He was 1 of 7 to begin the game, but 17 of 23, 74% to finish the game. But he had 8 completions of 15-plus yards, and a lot of that came in the second half. He just looked like Preston. He looked more confident. The offensive line was quite honestly helping him out more consistently, started to figure some things out. Plus, I thought Nevada kind of tired a little bit in the second half. So it just takes a couple of quarters sometimes to get a team going, and I don't suspect we'll see those kind of issues today.
By the way, for R.J. Maryland, 8 catches, 162 yards. Biggest day ever for a tight end in SMU football history. He also tied the SMU career record with 14 touchdowns, and he's only played game 1 of his junior season. Brashard Smith, new addition to the offense, 11 carries, 67 yards, and a score. The first touchdown of the second half, that was the one where that drive finished off with Brashard carrying it on the last 3 plays for 32 yards, and I thought he really showed a new dynamic to the offense.
Well, he did. You know, he's so quick. sort of a hybrid between a power back and a scat back. He can put his foot in the ground. He's got such great vision. Put his foot in the ground, get vertical in a hurry. I thought he did such a great job. Now, not a whole lot was mentioned about this week. I thought he was phenomenal in pass protection. He did a great job. There was one play in particular where Nevada blitzed, and he was able to chip the blitzing backer and yet still turn around to catch just a little dump pass, catch and run. He was really good in that respect. But also, when you watch him run, Rich, he can run between the tackles because he keeps the feet running. He's so good with his feet. He's so good in terms of being balanced. He has a low center of gravity, so it takes more than one guy to really bring him down. He is a nice addition, a very nice addition to this SMU offense.
And then the defense finally made some plays in the second half. They were kind of like the offense, a little off in the first half. Second half, Tank Booker with the safety, he absolutely walked his man 4 yards deep in the end zone.
Yes.
And then last possession of the game for Nevada that was almost completely thwarted by the only sack of the night by Isaiah Smith. But good to see that they got some things going defensively in that second half too.
And I thought, too, that linemen were not getting turned like they were in that first half. I thought that sort of caught us by surprise a little bit. And when we rushed the quarterback last week, I thought in the second half we made a nice adjustment, particularly Isaiah Smith. I thought he did a great job of not only rushing but playing his gap and playing that C gap and not running upfield and not getting caught down inside. Our technique was so much better. We're aggressive, but, man, when we play defense and play great team defense and we're gap sound, this is going to be a very good team.
Home opener tonight, HCU, Houston Christian. We've played them once before. They were Houston Baptist back in 2018. 6-5 last year. They're out of the FCS ranks. That's their best season they've had in the 10-year history of the program. They do have a new head coach, but he was the offensive coordinator last year, Jason Bechtel. Scott, this was the number one running offense in the Southland Conference last year. And they followed it up with the number one recruiting class of high school guys in FCS this season.
It's interesting. It's the first season where they haven't lost, had a losing season this last season. So it's the third year that they've had a new head coach. But Bechtel is unusual in that he really focuses on the defensive side, but he's an offensive guy. So not a lot of coaches are like that, and he's such a great offensive coordinator. And sometimes we've seen that he'll get pass happy, but he's been more disciplined the last few years as a head coach. He's a very solid guy to lead their program. They were a little bit surprised, I think, that Harris took off after 1 year. So this, again, is their third season to have a new head coach. But we'll see. They like to run the football. They'll use the tight end a lot today.
They list an or for starting at quarterback between Cutter Stewart and C.J. Rogers. I'm told it should be Stewart starting, but we'll see Rogers pretty early in the game. Stewart threw for over 11,000 yards at Orange Grove and Alice High Schools. Rogers did win a state title at Argyle with Bechtel, his head coach, as his offensive coordinator when he was in high school.
4A Player of the Year, Dallas Morning News, that senior year. He's a very good quarterback. Again, as you mentioned, probably going to start Stewart. Going to see definitely both quarterbacks today. Going to see more than one quarterback on both sides today.
Yeah, same plan for SMU at quarterback. Preston Stone will start. Kevin Jennings will play the third and fourth series, and then kind of see from there, probably see a little more Preston Stone, and with any luck, maybe see somebody else later in the game this afternoon. What do you think? It is a 7 o'clock kick tonight over at Ford Stadium. Scott and I will be on the broadcast on 96.7 and 1310 The Ticket beginning at 6:30 with our pregame show on the radio show. I will talk to tight end R.J. Maryland about his big game last week as well as to head coach Rhett Lashley. We told you a little bit about that Nevada game. Let's look at some of the highlights from last Saturday night's win.
SMU makes the move to the ACC, and there are a lot of people that think it's going to work out for them. They're going to compete, and then there are other people that think that they're not ready to play with the big boys, and they're not going to do very well in a power conference.
And I think they have a chance to be pretty good. You look at this SMU team, my thoughts on them, I think they have a chance to be pretty solid. You look at the roster, they got plenty of playmakers, plenty of talent on this roster.
Excited to see this team play. Saw them play in person last year. They transitioned to the ACC in the best position of the new teams joining the conference to succeed from day one.
All they gave me was a little rain and a little wind. So that's going to have to do. Hey, it's very, very simple. Win the run game, win the turnovers, but most importantly, be the most excited team to play. Sir. Expect it to be hard, but expect to win. I love each and every one of you guys. I'm proud of you. I believe in you, and I cannot wait to watch you play.
Rich, I've played in these type of elements. We'll see how SMU is able to respond to these sort of elements tonight.
And Jennings, a swing pass out. That's Brashard Smith to catch. Smith, he's good on the return, bounces off a tackler, trying to get outside.
He's got space.
And he's got speed, and he's to the 50, and down he goes. Blitz comes, and Jennings gets it away. It's Knighton with the catch, and Knighton flips over what looks like the first down line. Johnson in the backfield has it, end zone touchdown, and SMU finally hits pay dirt.
Run situation.
Draw him offside. Nope, it's Dollars with the carry, and he ain't gonna get it. Alexander Kilgore blew it up. That's a big sequence for SMU. Stone pulls it, fires it. Maryland again in the seam, has the catch, and he's got a big chunk of yards, 43 yards. And that one is good. Is going to run it, and he's going to be stopped well short of the first down. Nice job.
We've seen an upset this morning. Nevada has answered the call as far as being the underdogs in this game.
Man rush, Stone firing, sideline, open, caught. R.J. Maryland, the big tight end. Preston Stone, hands off. Rashard Smith breaks through, has the first down, still on his feet, and inside the 15. Smith again, touchdown, flags. All right, so the touchdown stands. 2-point conversion, successful. 3-point game. Fumbled at the goal line, so he muffed on a fair catch.
For Nevada, this is really their first adversity in the football game. Late here, let's see how they answer.
The handoff is clean. I don't think he got out.
It's a safety.
I think it's a safety. It is. It's a safety. They're down 8. Stone again deep. Again end zone caught. Sliding catch. R.J. Maryland from Preston Stone, and SMU is on top. Lewis steps in, he's in trouble, hits, and down he goes. Man rush. Lewis steps up in the pocket, going down the sideline, and it's caught out of bounds. Incomplete, and that's the ball game.
Man, you know, we have to fight through a little adversity, but at the end of the day, it makes us better as a team.
Told you before the game, right? We said expect it to be hard, but expect to win. We talked Thursday about how hard it is to win. But at halftime, what did we say? We say it's worth it to grind through it and go do something hard. We're going to have a lot to learn from. We got to be a lot more disciplined. We got to do our jobs better, starting with me. But we won, and we're 1-0. And we get to go in the new facility.
29-24 was the final score last week for the SMU win at Nevada. You see there a live shot of the Gary Weber end zone complex. Coach Lashley was kind of alluding to that there at the end of our highlight package. Sunday evening, after they got the team together for their meeting, they got to see that for the first time, go into their locker room for the first time. And that's the South End Zone complex that's been built over the last 2 off seasons and into last season as well. And it'll have a new video board atop it you'll see tonight at Ford Stadium. And the team, for the first time ever, going to come running out of the South End Zone onto the field here at Gerald J. Ford Stadium. They'll do that at 7 o'clock tonight when SMU takes on HCU in the home opener at Gerald J. Ford Stadium. Right now it's time for Rhett to the Point. We do this each week here on the Pony Up pregame show. Some clips from SMU head coach Rhett Lashley during his Wednesday night show, the Pony Express show, over at Ozona Grill and Bar. And I talked to Rhett about it. A really poor first half, particularly first quarter last Saturday night.
We never got in sync. We weren't playing great. They were playing well. And you go in, you give them the touchdown right before half, you go in down 17-10 on the road. You tell your guys, look, we're going to face adversity this year. How we respond is going to determine how our season goes. And, look, we knew Nevada had a chance to be a good team. That 40-plus transfers, that's not the same team that was there a year ago with a different coach. They reminded me of a lot of teams we played in the American Conference last year. They're going to win ball games. But to be down 7 at half and then the way things went, I think we played much better in the second half. We were about to take control of the game, had a penalty not go our way, and next thing you know, they eat up 8 minutes of the clock and you're down 11. Now it's starting to get tense and tight, and for our guys to have the poise to do what they did, things didn't go the way any of us scripted for 3 quarters, and then to win 16-0 in the fourth quarter, outgain them 250 yards, only have 1 penalty, we showed Mustang football and what we're about. We're just going to have to show it for 4 quarters from now on.
And in that second half, a lot of Preston Stone and a whole lot of R.J. Maryland. 8 catches, 162 yards, and a touchdown for R.J. in the second half. Biggest day ever for an SMU tight end, and great to see him come to life that second half.
You know, we tried to get him the ball early in the game, and, again, nothing was working. I think you saw even the first drive of the second half. We got him going. Mm-hmm. Preston found him a couple times. We went down and kicked the field goal. Look, RJ is a weapon out there. He gets matchups. That was a big safety that got matched up on him twice, and that's in our favor. And Preston identified it, found him, gave him a chance, and he made the plays.
Yeah, single coverage maybe not a good idea on R.J. Maryland quite often. We'll see if they do that here tonight. Some changes coming this week on the offensive side of the ball as Rhett Lashley's going to shuffle up the offensive line.
How do we get our best 5 on the field doing what they do best to help the unit, and then give them some time to get some continuity? And, you know, one of our concerns was potentially right tackle. I thought Nate Anderson went out there and did a fantastic job playing right tackle when he's been playing a lot of guard and center in college. But the reality of it is Justin Osborne is one of our best 2 tackles on our roster. And Ja'Kai Clark has started over 40 games in college football with over half of them being at center.
Right.
And so now you got PJ and you got Justin at tackle. You got Ja'Kai at center where it's natural and he's done it a lot. Logan Parr is back. We're going to move him over to the right side. He can do either one. And it allows us to get Savion on the field. It allows Nate to play some at guard. Ben, who played the other night on the 2-game winning drives. Yep. And I just think it puts our guys in a great position to do what they do best, but also gel as the best unit we can form with this year's team.
That's Rhett to the point here on the Podium Pregame Show. It's brought to you by Origin Bank. Origin Bank knows what strong teams can accomplish by working together. Origin's trusted advisors help you keep your financial goals within reach. Get the right people on your team today at origin.bank.com. Member FDIC. It is the Podium Pregame Show. We do this 2 hours before every game for the SMU Mustangs here on the SMU Mustangs Facebook page. Kickoff tonight, 7 o'clock at Ford Stadium. Radio called 96.7 and 1310. The ticket as well as on the SMU app. And the third member of our radio crew joins me now. It's Steve Lansdale, who's alongside me for our view from the sideline tonight. Steve, first off, I hate to tell you, it's not going to be 50 degrees at kickoff tonight.
No, that was beautiful in Reno last week, and this is going to be almost double that.
Not quite, but it is.
No, but it's going to be
a
hot.
bit warmer, no doubt. All right, we just heard Rhett talking about it. Changes to the offensive line. I mean, that's 4 of the 5 spots he has different guys in starting tonight.
Right, and so as they mix it up, as you heard Coach Lashley say, they're going to move Justin Osborne from center back to tackle, and he is really the Swiss Army knife that makes all that work because he has played guard, he's played center, he's played tackle. Last year he was widely regarded as the team's best offensive lineman. So in a way, you can look at him like he's 3 or 4 players in one. So you move him to tackle, and the reason they can do that, as Coach said, is Ja'Kai Clark played over 40 games at Miami and has played a lot of that at center. And so with that flexibility that is built in large part by Garin Justice, cross-training guys at different positions in camp, it's like you have 8 core guys, but it's sort of like having more than that. And an offensive line is all about finding the pieces that fit together, developing that timing, that chemistry, and that comfort level. And they've had some work in camp. They've had some work in practice. And with Osborne moving to tackle, they're hoping to put the best 5 out tonight.
The only new starter is going to be at left guard. Savion Byrd moves in there, the transfer from Oklahoma. I know 2 things about him. One, got a lot of ability. We saw him at Oklahoma last year, too. There's no guy friendlier and happier at practice every time I go out there than Savion Byrd.
That's true. And part of it, you have to think part of that is he's back home, right? He's a Duncanville guy. And Coach Lashley and his staff talk all the time about how a lot of the transfers who come to SMU had gone to other schools in different parts of the country, and then they want to come back home. Well, Savion Byrd lives about 20 minutes down the road in Duncanville. He will have his own personal fan club at these games, and you're right. He enjoys practice as much as any player, especially as much as any lineman you'll almost ever see.
Next up, they're blocking, of course, for a new running back this year, Brashard Smith. We saw him with about 150 all-purpose yards last week, including a nice kickoff return, and had a last 32 yards on that one drive, including the touchdown.
Right, and when you talk to his teammates and coaches, they thought he could have had a lot more yards and maybe more trips to the end zone. Brashard Smith is an absolutely electric runner. You and Scott were talking about it in the first segment about how he's got that balance of power and speed, and it is exceptional speed. His teammates have said he may be the fastest top-end speed on the entire roster, But part of what makes that really dynamic is he also accelerates to that top speed very, very quickly. So he's able to get that separation. And when he gets separation, the general rule is if he gets a gap, he's gone. He's done enough, and he's versatile enough, and he's electric enough that Preston Stone compared him to some guy named Reggie Bush. All he did was win a Heisman Trophy. So if he's anything close to Reggie Bush, he is a very dynamic weapon, and you're going to see the Mustangs try to come up with as many ways as possible to get the ball in his hands as a kick returner, as a running back, and then obviously also throwing it to him.
I was really impressed with how he handled it down after down as the primary running back because he mostly played wide receiver at Miami the last few years.
Right, and he doesn't seem shy about contact at all. I mean, you can't be if you're returning kicks, first of all. But to your point, as you mentioned a segment ago, he's not afraid to run between the tackles either. He's electric and very fast, but he's also very strong. And he can take some hits, he can absorb some punishment, and he's going to be a very productive weapon for the Mustangs all year.
That's Steve Lansdale with our view from the sideline. He'll be our sideline reporter for the radio broadcast tonight, beginning at 6:30 with the pregame, 7 o'clock to kickoff on 96.7 and 1310. The ticket for the radio broadcast for SMU and HCU. And now we're going to go to Steve's other specialty here because Steve does a lot for us around here at SMU. And his other specialty, I know, is men's soccer. And we're going to welcome in Kevin Hudson, the men's soccer coach. Steve, take it away.
We're joined by Kevin Hudson, who I remember as a player, a standout player during his career as an athlete at SMU. And I'm feeling a little old to realize this is now your 10th season as the head coach at SMU. The biggest story on campus all year, maybe more than a year, has been the move to the ACC. On this show, we've been talking about that from a football perspective. From a men's soccer standpoint, what does the ACC landscape look like for you and your program?
Yeah, it's a fantastic opportunity. It is, without doubt, the best soccer league in the country. So, yeah, it's a wonderful opportunity for these young men to, showcase what SMU soccer is and, to put us in the national stage on a game-in and game-out opportunity. So we're excited.
Every coach every year has to replace players who graduate, and you graduated the goalkeeper of the year, the defender of the year, the best striker in the American Athletic Conference last year. As you have looked ahead to the ACC, has that changed your roster construction, the kind of recruiting that you and your staff do?
Yeah, I mean, you I guess I keep telling people, ask me in October. We'll know a little better then. Yeah, it's always a concern and a concentration is to make sure you have the right balance in the roster. Yeah, the ACC is, as I said, without doubt, the top league. I think we're ready from a technical soccer playing component. The concern you have is, do we have the same collection of athletes that other teams in the ACC may have? Yeah, so in 24, this is that roster is built and was built through the summer, and we feel strong about what we have. And looking forward into 25 and beyond, yeah, the model doesn't change in how we want to play the game and the principles of what we do, but maybe the balance of athleticism, maybe that has to take a little bit higher priority.
You are one of those coaches who has the benefit or the privilege of coaching the team where you also played. And by joining the ACC, you were allowed to expand your staff. And so you added another guy who played here. Jaime Ibarra was an excellent goalkeeper during his career playing for SMU. What does he add to your staff?
Yeah, we added Jaime back in January. Yeah, I mean, he's obviously a wonderful coach and a guy that I trust, and he's, there's no doubt that he's loyal to the program, to the university, to myself. Yeah, he's a really sharp soccer mind, and he's a fantastic goalkeeper trainer. Like, he was instrumental in game plan from the other night, and he is, the focus, and he brings a lot of ideas and how we want to set up and to play. But no, I feel really strong about the collection of coaches we have. We were blessed to add, 2 new staff members when this transition to the ACC. So we now have 3 assistant coaches and a full-time sports scientist, and we're really excited about how that can benefit us, with the roster we have and building the roster, and obviously enhancing the athletic components of what we do.
You mentioned the game the other night, and I asked you before the game about doing this interview today, and your response was something like, well, let's see how tonight's game goes. Well, you went out and shut out the number 6 team in the country, beating St. Louis 1-0. it's early. It's not a conference game, but what can a victory like that do for your team going into the rest of the season?
Yeah, no, it has to help. Like, it gives you a ton of confidence moving forward. St. Louis is an excellent team. They beat Indiana, who was a top-ranked team the weekend before. We started 1-0-1 and drew to Oral Roberts. And after reviewing that with the staff, we were a little bit, I don't know, a nice way to say it, a little delicate in how we played, and we didn't quite have the grit we needed to. So the boys were challenged all week, and St. Louis is a big physical team that likes to play a direct style of soccer and turn you around and kind of press you and defend high up the field. And we challenged the boys to compete at that level, and they showed up and they played very well. So after the game, we said that needs to be like a continual part of our DNA, not just, hey, it's a top 10 team, we're gonna compete in battle. So yeah, moving forward, we're excited. St. Louis is a good opponent, but one on the schedule, and put it behind us and get ready for tomorrow.
Speaking of tomorrow, you get to celebrate St. Louis for like 5 minutes because Denver comes to town. You split a couple of games with them last year, including in the NCAA tournament. You ended their season, but Denver comes in ranked 9th in the country, I believe. What do you need to see from your guys to get another result and make this a terrific weekend for you?
Yeah, different task. Denver is probably one of the, best teams in terms of like pure possession of the ball and trying to break you down. So yeah, we're going to have to defend in different areas, and then we're going to really have to use the ball and keep it and try to make them chase for a bit. But yeah, it's a game they have to have circled on their schedule, as do we, in that, they beat us in the regular season last year. We got them back in the NCAA tournament in a thriller. So yeah, if we don't think there's going to be a ton of juice in that game, we're kidding ourselves.
You play Denver. The women's team plays TCU in a doubleheader at Washburn. He's Kevin Hudson, head coach of the SMU men's soccer team. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it. We'll have Steve back on here shortly when we're going to pick some games. But first, as we continue here on the Pony Up Pregame Show, I'm Rich Phillips along with Scott Garner. We're going to get you ready for HCU tonight. Meet the Enemy is this segment. It is the second all-time meeting between these schools. SMU won 62-27 in 2018. They were known as Houston Baptist.
Yes.
At that time, I don't know the particulars of why they're Houston Christian now. Scheduled to start Champ Dozier at running back here tonight. This was the top rushing team in the Southland Conference last year. Dozier got off to a great start with 294 yards in the first 4 games, got hurt, missed the rest of the year. I know they got a lot of expectations for him coming back this season.
Big expectations. He only had 54 carries last year, but he can do it between the tackles. He'll bounce it outside some, ran for almost 300 yards. We're going to see some Calvin Hill, too, who's a Texas State transfer, a UTEP transfer. He's a senior, played in a number of games for Texas State, 4 years, in fact, played at Texas State, racked up almost 1,800 yards. But they're going to use a lot of tight end. Watch Martinez, number 15. Drake Martinez, 3-star guy out of high school. This is a guy that's a veteran, played 2 years over there at Colorado State and McNeese. So they'll run some too tight formations at times, but they are going to use a lot of tight end. They've got a couple of guys, too, who can pass catch from an offensive standpoint. One guy we're familiar with.
Yeah.
Calvin Wiggins, SMU transfer, 6'4", 210-pound Roanoke native, a guy that played 4 years here at SMU, played in, I think, 18 games. A guy that only had 12 catches. I was surprised that he only had 12 grabs last year, but they hope that he'll step up. But he and Deuce McMillan will be the two guys we'll be looking at alongside Wilson and Fuller from an offensive standpoint.
Really no experience at quarterback. Cutter Stewart expected to start. I believe he was in one game last year. But C.J. Rogers, I think, is the guy they want to be their quarterback. Rogers played for Jason Bechtel, the head coach, when he was offensive coordinator at Argyle High School, and they won a state title together.
Won a state title, threw for a ton of yards. He was the MVP of the district, 4A player of the year by the Dallas Morning News for the area. 16-0 he was as a high school standout. This is a guy, though, that's a junior. He's got good experience, played at Baylor, played at Texas State. Here he is now at Houston Christian. So not unusual for players to play at 3 or 4 different schools now. Was not like this 3 or 4 years ago, but he's got a ton of experience. Bechtel likes him, but again, they don't want to become too pass happy. They'll fight that tendency and be more balanced, and we'll see multiple looks at him tonight.
All right, let me give you my stat of the week here tonight. It is 4.6 and 41.2.
Okay.
Those are the number of penalties SMU averaged last season and the number of penalty yards SMU averaged in 14 games last season. And by the way, that wasn't out of character because the year before it was 4.3 and 42.3. 11 and 125 were out of character last week for this team.
I can't believe we're 30 minutes into this show and you finally bring that up. Hey, that was a big story, I thought. In fact, that's our key to success tonight. Key number one, you got to minimize the penalties. But it was weird because you had 11 penalties. 5 of them were of 15 yards or more. You didn't have a lot of false starts, so we had one delay of game penalty, but every penalty was over 5 yards except for, I believe, 1.
5 personal fouls, 2 pass interferences on top of that. Yeah. And then there was also, as we mentioned, the Brandon Crossley penalty on the punt where he was called for spitting on a player. First off, I don't think the referee's supposed to announce that on the PA. He's supposed to tell the coach and then announce an ejection. Secondly, I was told 5 video angles show that didn't happen, and I know Rhett Lashley addressed it with the team yesterday at the end of practice that that's not what we do, and you're going to have problems here if you do that, but nobody did that. Man, free yards can be killers, so 11 for 125, that has to be right out tonight.
Yeah, and I think I looked back at the notes last year. I think our worst game in terms of penalties was 8 penalties. I think we had 8 penalties in one game, 5 penalties in 2 other games, so it was way out of character, but I thought, I'm looking back at the tape, and hands were on the face from an offensive line perspective and from a defensive line perspective, but it was kind of iffy a couple of times, but the flag came out anyway, and we're just seeing officiating around college football be a little sensitive in that area, and I saw a couple of holds today in some different games where I texted a few coach friends of mine, and they were kind of iffy about it too, so we'll see how the game's officiated early on.
Now it's time for our Pick'em Challenge, brought to you by our show sponsor, Origin Bank. We pick 5 games each week. Somebody went 5-0 on this group last week. Somebody picked North Carolina.
You know what? Hey, what did it come down to?
North Carolina beat Minnesota by 2.
Came down to a kick, and that left-footed kicker from Minnesota, he missed the early one with that.
And you guys get me grief for following kickers.
Hey, 7 o'clock, 1 o'clock rotation. I said, there's no way he's making that kick, and he just yanked it.
Well, I'm happy to see it happen.
I know you were happy.
Joining us this week, we've got a special guest picker with us, the North Texas president for Origin Bank and former SMU Mustang, Wari Birdwell. Wari.
Thank you, sir.
You were here when I first started back in 2001.
It's been a while.
It sure has. All right, you ready for these 5 games we've got here today?
Can't wait.
All right, we're going to start off with 6 o'clock tonight, just before we get started, actually. Nevada will play at Troy. Nevada looked good for 3 quarters, obviously, last week against SMU. Troy went 11-3 last year. They've won 23 games the last 2 seasons. They do have a new head coach, Gerard Parker, who was an assistant at Notre Dame the last 2 years. Steve?
I feel like Nevada threw its big punch last week trying to get its first win in the home opener, and obviously the disappointment coming up short against SMU. Troy has won an awful lot, and Troy did lose a lot of talent, but they still have a lot of talent. Troy wins.
Wari.
Troy finds some athletes. It's going to be 40 degrees and a lot more humid for Nevada. Troy wins.
All right.
Yeah,
Scott?
if Nevada can't score, they're going to have problems. I know they put up 20-plus last week, the 24 against SMU. I don't think they get there this week. And plus, a team like Nevada, if they scored a little bit more, their defense would be able to play harder for longer. I think that's going to be a problem for them every game this season. I'm going Troy in this one.
Nevada's still starting Brendan Lewis at quarterback?
Yes, they are.
I'll take Troy. Also at 6 o'clock, UNLV is in Houston tonight. UNLV 9-5 last year, their first season under Barry Odom, and they went to their first bowl game since 2012. Houston 4-8 last year, but Steve, God's gift to coaching is there. Willie Fritz,
Scott's all-time
favorite is the head
Scott's
coach
favorite
there.
Coach in the history of sports is the new head coach for the University of Houston.
Hey, you guys laughed at me when I kept bragging on this guy. Next thing you know, he's the head coach at Houston.
And that's a good thing?
Well,
anyway,
it was a good thing.
Willie Fritz, yes, he's a very good coach, obviously, but he leans heavily on the run. But he also lost 4 of the 5 starting offensive linemen from a year ago. That said, UNLV got a transfer quarterback that nobody knows about named Matt Sluka, if I'm pronouncing that name correctly. And he is very talented, but he's not talented enough. Uncle Willie will get his win down in Houston.
Wari?
Willie starts off with a win. He did a hell of a job at Tulane and earned that U of H job. As much as it pains me to say it, but Cougar High will win.
I like that, though.
Hey,
Scott?
last 2 years,
We know
23-4 last 2 years for Willie Fritz. But, UNLV, they're loaded at wide receiver. They really are. They've got 4 of their 5 linemen coming back. UNLV lost their quarterback to USC, who did not earn the starting job, by the way. Unfortunately for him, they acquired a Campbell quarterback who's a dual threat, but I do think that Willie Fritz pulls it out and picks up the win.
That's a shock.
Shocking, man.
You didn't need all that analysis. You're going with Willie.
UNLV has not won a road opener since 2007. They've not beaten a Big 12 team since 2008, and they won't do it tonight. I'll take Houston as well. 6:30 tonight. Big game down in College Station, 7th-ranked Notre Dame at number 20, Texas A&M. How about Mike Elko making his coaching debut at A&M after 2 decent seasons as the head coach at Duke? Of course, he's a former Aggie assistant, and he faces now his former Blue Devils QB, Riley Leonard, who transferred to Notre Dame. Interesting.
If there's a game on the schedule where I could root for both teams to lose, this is it. But that being said, it's not going to happen that way. Joe Alt is not the only lineman, the only elite player that Notre Dame lost. And A&M is just a weird environment. And as much as a lot of players have transferred out of College Station in the last couple of years, they still have loads of athletes. It may not be the prettiest game in the world, but A&M will beat Notre Dame.
Wow. Worry?
Aggie's going to Aggie. Go Notre Dame.
That's funny. Hey, you know who that environment's going to be weird for? Mike Elko, who's never seen an Aggie game from Kyle Field. He's always been in the press box. That's the one thing he's looking forward to. Aggies, though, they lose a ton of guys on defense from last year. They've restocked, but I'm not sure about them. It is hard to score on Notre Dame in the red zone. I'm going to go Irish in this one.
Notre Dame may have 2 first-round picks playing at corner on this team, including Xavier Watts, who won the Bronco Nagurski last year. He had 7 interceptions. And the Aggies, they haven't had a double-digit win season since 2012. I like Notre Dame in this one. Sunday, we've got a big game at 6:30. 23rd-ranked USC at number 13 LSU. Actually, this is in Las Vegas. They're playing this game. Third year for Lincoln Riley at USC. They were 11-3 last year, but they're into the Big Ten. He doesn't have Caleb Williams at quarterback anymore, so Miller Moss is going to take over with 100 career attempts under his belt.
He doesn't have Caleb Williams, but LSU lost a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback as well.
Yes.
That being said, both teams have loads of athletes. For USC, most of them are on offense, and until they at least act like they know what defense is, give me LSU.
Ori?
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
Yeah, USC. They can score, but they had the 117th best defense in the country. That means they were awful last year. I'm not sure how much better it's going to be this year. No, I'm going to go LSU in that one.
LSU was terrible defensively. I'll take USC in this one.
Okay.
And finally, Monday night, 6:30, we've got a conference game in the ACC. Boston College at 10th-ranked Florida State. They probably won't be 10th ranked next week after having lost already off their shocking loss to Georgia Tech. When we last saw Boston College, Thomas Castellanos was running wild on SMU in the Fenway Bowl, and this guy went for 2,200 passing yards and 1,100 rushing last season, Steve.
He did, but as you mentioned, this is another conference game for Florida State. They've already lost one. So not that they need any extra inspiration to get up for a conference game, but you don't want to go into an 0-2 hole. People have been talking all week about how Florida State is the first team ever to be in 17th place in the ACC. Florida State is embarrassed. They're angry. And they're a whole lot more talented than Boston College. Let's not overthink this. Seminoles win.
Worry?
Tallahassee's not going to burn. Florida State's not going to have 2 in a row.
No, I don't think so. Scott?
I agree. I'm going to go with Seminoles in this one. But, Jeff Hafley losing, Boston College losing that guy, that hurts them a ton. Bill O'Brien, not so sure about Bill O'Brien. Well, I am sure about Bill O'Brien.
He hates Bill O'Brien.
I am sure.
He's no Willie Fritz.
Yeah,
hey, what did you say? I didn't hear that, Steve. What did you say?
He coached the Texans is the problem, and they had problems there. He hates Bill.
Okay.
BC did lose this game by 2 last year. There's no way Florida State is going to go 0-2. I will take the Seminoles as well. Worry, we appreciate the sponsorship with Origin Bank, and thanks for joining us here today.
Thank y'all so much.
All right, there's Worry Birdwell with us, and there's our Pick'em Challenge this week. Brought to you each week by Origin Bank. They thank them for sponsoring the Pony Up pregame show once again. Origin Bank knows what strong teams can accomplish by working together. Origin's trusted advisors help you keep your financial goals within reach. Get the right people on your team today at originbank.com, member FDIC. All right, some final thoughts here tonight. SMU and HCU kicking off at 7 o'clock. Give us a couple couple keys to success.
Well, key number one for the Mustangs, got to cut down on the penalties. There's no doubt about it. That's key number one and maybe key number two. Key number two, seek key number one. 11 penalties last week. Can't do that. Want to execute early. Preston Stone was just 1 of 7 to start last week. He was fantastic. Completed 74% of his balls the last many passes that he had to conclude that ball game. But you want to get him going early, and you want to get Hudson and Smith and all of those wide receivers, especially, we haven't talked about this, especially Jake Bailey, need to get those guys going. Those three combined had just 7 catches last week. I think we get those guys going early, and I don't think it's a close game tonight, but those are the 3 keys.
Yeah, Jake Bailey, 6 targets, no receptions last week. Definitely disappointing for him and for the Mustangs. All right, that'll do it here for our Pony Up pregame show tonight. Next Friday night, we'll do it at 4 o'clock. It'll be Friday afternoon, I guess, because it's a 6 o'clock kick next Friday for SMU and BYU. Tonight's radio broadcast starts at 6:30. 7 o'clock kick on Sports Radio 96.7, 1310 The Ticket, the SMU app, and SiriusXM Channel 194. For Steve Lansdale, Scott Garner, I'm Rich Phillips. Thanks for joining us for the Pony Up pregame show. Let's all pony up.